It's time for NuWellness TV with Dr. Lee. Join your host, the accomplished Dr. Cherilyn Lee, as she welcomes the leading experts in health and well-being as they explore the advancements in natural health, physical fitness, nutrition, integrative medicine, and self-discovery.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here in California. Sorry for the late start, but I want to thank everyone who stayed and tuned in for the show today because it's going to be a one of a kind. And I said breaking news because it is. There's so many things happening, and there's so many people that I get calls from that are sick and not knowing why they're sick. So today's topic, I'm just thrilled that I have in my audience, or actually they're on Skype. They're zoomed in all the way from their home state, and they're going to talk about, a little bit more about them as well. But I am so excited that we are going to be talking about the newest technology that's non-invasive for testing heavy metal, where you get the results instantly. Can you imagine instantly? You don't have to wait for your lab to come back, urine test, blood test. You don't have to wait. You'll know the test in my office instantly. And I'm so excited to tell you that because of the fact then we can go through and sort of outlining as to what your problems are. I always say, and everybody hear me say this, test and don't guess. We must test, never guess. Okay? So I just want to say, I want to thank my guests for being here today. The wonderful husband and wife, Michael and Elizabeth.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, we're going to first start off by ladies first. So Elizabeth, why don't you tell everybody as to who you are and what do you do? Because you have the passion, and you have a burning desire, passion. Both you and your husband. No wonder you guys are together. Because you remind me of people who you're so joyful in what you're doing, and the information you give out is wonderful. So tell everybody who you are.
Well, it's a real discovery to be in life and to live this many years and to find each other at such a late time. I was already in my 50s as Michael was as well. And I had transitioned from working in an industry in New Jersey. It was the medical industry and a medical company in hospitals. I had a lot of background in research as well as training and development of product lines for a big company in New Jersey, a pharmaceutical company. And Michael and I happened to meet in California at a convention, a conference, and there was just a dynamic there that we recognized between ourselves and the products that he was making. And it was time for a leap of faith and to find a direction where we could really make an impact and show something that nobody else was doing or even knew about. And it's just evolved into this magnificent discovery through the device that we talk about, as well as the continual development of our products.
Yes. And we're going to go more into detail on the products. But first of all, I want, Michael, if you could just tell everybody a little bit about your background as well.
My background started, I worked with, after college, with Dr. David B. Mullane, was a LA-based neurosurgeon. I was assistant for 23 years, and that pretty much set my foundation for research and in the medical field. Also, my background was in scuba diving, and I got my certification from UCLA, and I did some underwater studies all up and down the coast, the West Coast, and I was able to see the water base, what we were doing to the oceans just from the pollution from the shore. Also, I worked with my family's chemical company, so I saw the hazards of working with chemicals and how they could affect people and shorten their lifespan. And Dr. Mullane and I started the Herbalix company in 1999, And that set the stage for where we are today.
Yes.
And so I've continued the education in understanding heavy metals. We attend a lot of conferences on aluminum toxicity and other environmental issues. We've worked with the Environmental Working Group. We were one of the first compliant companies to work with them. We are the manufacturers, but we also the Allegro Scan device, a spectrophotometer, is that we found out that our backgrounds were well suited for the interpretation of the data that comes out of the scan. So we are now the interpretive center for all of the United States for teaching practitioners how to use the Allegro Scan. And so that's where we are today.
Yes. And I am so excited that we have the Allegro Scan at our clinic at NuWellness Healthcare. I am truly, truly blessed. I want people to know, if you go to my website, you're not going to find it yet. Our website is being redeveloped as we speak, and it should be up and running by the end of the week. I want to thank, I had a guest on who was actually developing the website, so I'm so excited that she's taking care of that. But I just want to say that, I want to kind of jump into this latest technology for screening for heavy metal. And I want to first, let's talk about a little bit about the Allegro Scan.
Okay. Well, the Allegro Scan is a device, it's a spectrophotometer, and it uses the palm to read intracellular cells and outside the cell. Approximately 70% of our fluids in our body are intracellular, inside the cell. Mm-hmm. And for other ways with blood, urine, and hair analysis, you have to take the state of the body, it's removed. So it's taken out of circulation. The Allegro Scan leaves in circulation, it's non-invasive, and you're getting the circulation, the cells right fresh, a fresh picture. And with that, it can absorb every element within the skin, and they give you 14 heavy metals and 20 minerals. So we can start to look at the mineral heavy metal balance.
They do actually compile more information than what is shown in the test, but it would be overwhelming to see 200 elements. So they narrow it down to the most specific minerals and the most harmful and prevalent heavy metals. And then based on those, they look at the combination of how it's affecting or impacting the body, showing ratios, for instance. And then there's also three other aspects. There's one that tells you what your stress level is, your oxidative stress. Then you look to see if your body is actually capable of getting rid of toxins, or if you're blocked for any reason. And finally, it has a physiology section. You look at 8 physiologies that are based on those balances of the minerals and the heavy metals.
Yes, and I am so excited. It may not show right now, but I'm so excited. This is a tool that we have in our office because it has saved a lot of time in helping the person to understand what is going on with their body and why. Because with the test here, it goes. Now, it goes in a lot of detail, but I want to discuss what is the importance of knowing. And basically, I know, but I want to ask you because of the fact that you're the experts on my show today, and I thank you so much for that. Mm-hmm. So what is the importance of knowing heavy metal burden? What is the importance?
The importance for the heavy metals is that it gives a chance for a practitioner and the patient to look inside the body and not only see the minerals, but to see what may be blocking the minerals from working. When you start to look at certain metals, you get more of an understanding that the metals are taking over the body and burdening the organs throughout. And so when you look at the different metals, like mercury or lead, you're getting a very accurate view of what's really taking place underneath the body. But it's really now the new approach that the metals, if they are excessive, they will start affecting the health of the body.
Right. And the one thing about this test that I like after doing quite a few people testing them is this is right now. This isn't like you had a test, it was sent off to a lab, and we know that that happened like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. This is a right now, in real time, as to what's happening with you in real time, which I find is extremely important. Extremely important. So, why do you consider this the best way of doing the test for heavy metal?
Because the spectrophotometer is in the spectrometry world, and spectrometry is used by the scientists for looking at planets. They look at forensics, they look at food, they look at water with mass spectrometry. And in fact, the spectrometry was used for looking at the moon rocks. And my uncle, Fred Walls, was the first scientist to examine the moon rocks, and they used a spectrometer. And I asked him, I said, what was the importance of, in the late 60s to look at the moon rocks? And he said, well, we had nothing to compare with on Earth, our minerals and elements, until we got the moon rocks to verify. Because he said, everything on Earth is contaminated.
Yes.
This way, they were able to make the algorithms, and these algorithms are found, they're universal around the world for the spectrometer. So the light that it uses can absorb and find out what elements are in the body currently. So it gives a snapshot right there of what's happening. And what we like about it is that in 3 months or 6 months, depending upon the treatment, we can see whether they're wasting their time with whatever type of treatment, and that we have to make alterations in lifestyle or whatever. And
I just want to add one thing, and I know you brought this up, Dr. Lee. It's bioavailability. It's what the body is using. It's what it sees and what it can get to, and that's why it's important to have a moment in time that you're looking at specifically, and it tells you what is actually going on as a result of those combinations of minerals and metals. And we really know that metals interfere with our absorption of our minerals.
Yeah.
The important thing also to know on the scan is when you see a level, for instance, even if you look at zinc as an example, and you see zinc is either high or low, that can be understood better by correlating it how it's related to cadmium, for instance. And then you can look at the ratio.
That
and
is
you can
so
see
important. Please repeat that again. And people need to realize the relationship of heavy metals and then the other elements, how the ratio is important. I know I've been doing heavy metal testing through other companies years ago, and that's the one thing that they had laid out for me. But then it took me like 2 weeks to get the report. And by then, the patient could have something else going on, so you're treating something that's like weeks away. So one thing with this test here is real time. Again, I have to stress real time in order for a person to know what's going on. So say that again. I'm sorry to interrupt you because the zinc and relationships to everything else, the importance of knowing the ratio between what's happening.
I will add that for zinc and cadmium, they're like a balance. And so you're looking at, if you have a lot of cadmium, we find low zinc all the time. And people say they have a hard time bringing up their zinc. And so these are antagonists. The heavy metals are antagonists to the minerals. And if you're too high in one heavy metal, it's very difficult to bring up the mineral to balance it out. So that's why being able to look at a scan, the Allegro Scan, that you can automatically determine right there within seconds what's going on with the person. And the other part is that, as you probably found, Dr. Lee, you can go right to a person's home and do the test, which, for somebody, it may be inconvenient for them to go someplace. So we find that it's a new approach to healthcare. It's a new guide. And when we measure doctors, they're absolutely just amazed because they were never trained in medical school on heavy metals, nor did they have a device, anything like this.
Yes.
So we try to, we have to show them the balance, like mercury will overtake iodine.
Okay, let's move a little slow because the engineer here, Tony Sweets, he's just wonderful. So as we talk through this, he's going to be putting up some wonderful material real time. So as people are watching the show, they're able to make a correlation and see the zinc cadmium and what's happening there, um, which is important. And I know we're going to get to this one, but I just want to say too, not to interrupt you, when I'm working with people with cancer, and I don't like the word cancer, I just say abnormal cells. What's really important is to see the zinc copper relationship. And in doing this test, it's amazing. You also show the zinc copper because on a 2 to 1, you want to have more zinc than you do copper in the body. Because when that happens, we know that the copper can sort of take over and there's more of a malignancy happening or
Sure.
spreading. So it's a good gauge, and you want to have more zinc so the body can heal properly. So I just want to say that since we kind of was there on zinc a little bit, but it is so important. And then we could just go back because he has some wonderful things showing what organ systems are hit by heavy metal. Some people think, oh, well, it's just heavy metals, maybe in my mouth, might be in my gut. But I just want you to see what organ systems are hit by heavy metal, and it's your entire body. So it's really important that you know that and that you see that. Um, so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do want people to really understand the value of this test because it can save your life, your child's life. And while I'm saying that, what is the starting age that you can start testing? How young?
It was at one time 12, but it is now lower. It's about 3. And and the reason that there was a delay in that is because it was hard to build what you could put, because a child is developing so quickly, they couldn't really establish the reference ranges, but they worked a way through the algorithm to be able to do that.
Okay, and this is done by scientific methods by whom?
It's done in Europe. If
Okay.
there's a doctor group in Europe, they're in Belgium as well as France, and there's a couple other doctors from other countries, but they're the ones that put together the algorithm formulas and
Hmm.
determined the process for using spectrophotometry through the derma of the hand. And the reason that we use that is because it's representative of the entire body, because it has everything in the hand that we find throughout the body. So we're getting a picture of what is in every cell of the body.
And in addition to that, it's the non-dominant hand because the non-dominant
Thank
side
you.
can hold up to 10 to 15% greater amount of heavy metals.
Why is
And so,
that?
well, it's because the dominant side excretes more through the skin because it's more dynamic. Where the non-dominant side, we find that with the underarm, the axilla, or the breast, can actually hold on to more metals. And we found this out back in 2006 with one of our products. And then we found out that Allegro Scan found this out because you can measure both hands
Hmm.
and you can see the difference on an individual. We've had doctors test it. And so we know what hand you are by just measuring your minerals and heavy metals.
That's interesting because I like to share this story since we're talking about the hand and testing at this point. When everything was being set up in my office, there was a young man there who is a computer analyst, and he sets up computers throughout the city here, called the Computer Doctor. But when he came in, I said, you know what, you should have the test done, because he had already explained to me that he had had a stroke and and a heart attack. But I just want to say that when I did his test, I was alarmed by, because I had never seen this before. And the other companies I had worked with for years, I didn't see that in their testing. So, and he was right there real time, not calling him back saying, let's go over your results. So the metal that was high in his body that was so toxic was lithium.
Oh, that
Lithium.
is.
So I remember calling you and was telling you the situation, and I'm gonna let you take over from there. It was just amazing to find out why the lithium, and he had had a heart attack, was so high in his body.
Yeah, there's other contributing factors, but one of the factors that
Yes,
we found that
most
people
definitely.
wear wristwatches, and the lithium batteries can, we believe, leak into the body.
Exactly.
Uh, so we, whether it's processed food we can pretty much tell the lifestyle of what somebody's doing on just looking at the scan. But lithium also can be depleted from high levels of vitamin D. So that when people take too much vitamin D and they see low lithium and low phosphorus, it's usually because of the excess amount of vitamin D. So that's another one besides a leaky battery and a wristwatch.
Yes,
And
because
also,
there was a well-known practitioner who took too much, without saying their name, too much vitamin D and end up in the ER because of what happened from the lithium overdose. Not so much overdose, but he had a high level of lithium after taking high doses, very high doses of vitamin D. So thank you for sharing that as well. So you want everything in our body has to be in a balance and in a range. With your minerals, everything needs to be in a ratio and in a balance. But we're going to move on. So if a person have this test, and that was one of the questions you said, what is the best way to get the test of your heavy metal? I know when you come to my office, I'm going to do the test, and then we're going to go over it. But we have so much to cover in the show too, but it's very lengthy. I was surprised how lengthy the test is, and it's so comprehensive. So what do you normally tell your patients as far as them getting the results?
well, when I probably looking at how to explain it to a patient.
How to explain it? Yes.
And what we do is we're going to use this as a base for the patient and point out certain things in a questionnaire that they previously filled out and start to point to some maybe lifestyle habits or where they live or what they do for work that may be a contributing factor to their heavy metals in creating this imbalance. From there, we can set up a plan, a guide. The practitioner sets up a guide, and in 3 months or 6 months, depending about the severity of the heavy metals, that we can retest and see how they're moving. Mm-hmm. So that's how we guide it. But there's one metal that is really attributing a lot of havoc in the whole population of the world, and that is the aluminum that is being created by the aluminum factories around the world.
Yes.
And that's contributing to affecting creating a lot of hypertension. It's forming a shield in the skin, and it's creating what we call the non-excreter status on the Allegro Scan, which is the all-important. It tells us that this individual is not able to get rid of their heavy metals. And if you're not able to get rid of your heavy metals, the minerals are not going to be able to balance out the metals. So the best way is to actually teach people how to detox correctly for their gene types, for the food and air and water. And that's where they need a practitioner to come in, and that's why this scan is so important.
Mm-hmm. Because even with myself, I don't wear a watch. I don't use aluminum deodorant. I stay away from certain chemicals on my hair that we know is laced with lead. There's a lot of things I do, but because of the environment, we're getting a lot of things coming into our body. Now, I think there was an article that came out from one of the countries that the clothes they were sending was high in metal. So that was being absorbed through the body. So where are you getting this? Women from makeup. To be so careful what you put on your skin, certain lotions. You have to know what's going on. So when we talk about heavy metals and being saturated into the body, we're going to kind of move into the lymphatic system, but not just the lymphatic system, the glymphatic system. Those two systems are very important. So the lymphatic system, we know, is the area of the body that does not have a pump. The heart has a pump, so it gets to the circulation of the body. Your lymphatic system, or 500 to 700 lymph nodes throughout the body, more concentrated in the abdomen. So you have more lymph nodes in the abdomen, but they're throughout the body. And I'm going to have you share a story with me that you shared with me yesterday. But when we look at the glymphatic system, how many people know about the glymphatic system? Now, that system is so important because that system has to do with neurological disorders. We always say that aluminum is highly linked to all the studies. A lot of studies were done at UCLA on aluminum and Alzheimer. I had a dentist on the show too that showed if you had dark plaque around your teeth, that was also found in the brain of people doing autopsy, unfortunately, from Alzheimer's. So you don't want the plaque in the mouth as well. But the lymphatic system, nobody really talks about. So how are we going to deal with that? The lymphatic system holds onto a lot of heavy metals. That's where a lot of your neurological problems are coming from. That is your brain and your vertebral system of your spine. So how is that being drained through the body? So because there's no pump. So I am so happy that you know, Mike and your wife have a wonderful product that we use to help a body heal. I do have patients take things that are orally. We do know there's natural things. The good thing about these two systems is that we can go back and we could test and not guess. Are you healing? Are you eliminating these heavy metals from your body? That is very important. So I want you to go and start talking about the lymphatic system, both of you, because you work so close together. And when one says something, the other will pick up and bring it on board. So let's start first with the lymphatic system.
That, you know, when we started working with the lymphatic system, we found out that we were trying to discover why things were blocked. And everybody thinks, you know, I don't use antiperspirant, but we're breathing in and we're getting so much aluminum atmospheric from around the world.
Yes.
That and from food, one of the highest levels of aluminum is in cereals, because wheat and corn products chelate from the soil and bring it up into the corn. Then it's processed through aluminum trays and whatever. And by the time people eat it, the aluminum, as it works its way down the digestive system, gets trapped in the liver. Now, as the body tries to chelate all these metals and everything, it will start to gravitate towards, because of gravity, to the hands and the lower extremities, which are in the feet.
Yes.
So we actually have people start at the feet, and I'm going to hold up a little picture. This is where we start, and I'm not sure if your audience can see the calloused feet on this particular person.
Yes,
but you can see the swelling of the ankles that is taking place. And I apologize for trying to get that, but what happens is that if somebody has calluses on the edge of their heel, they have already been compromised in their lymphatics, because the salts coming down through the feet are now not able to sweat through the bottom of the feet, and they're backing up the lymphatics in the form of calcification. And the first lymph node that gets hit is in the inner knee, and we actually palpate the inner knee. And the reason why we know that we were at the anti-aging conference, and I started
just want to say, I don't want to cut you up. I just want to say, inner knee, because I want people to follow this show. You know, your inner. So if you touch your knee, and then take your hand and rub all the way underneath, that's the inner knee. That would be underneath. So I want people to know that. So you can palpate that yourself. Palpating means you can sort of just touch it yourself and see if you have any tenderness. And you can kind of see the picture, but I think my engineers are going to find one for us so people can see it a little bit better.
You're correct, Dr. Lee. If you palpate on the inner knee and you can actually hold it in your fingers, then it's probably that lymph node is swollen and it's not draining correctly, which means the thighs will build up, and then the rest of the body will start building up, and you won't mobilize to heavy metals. This is what we've been able to see on the Allegro Scan in what's called sulfur conjugation, and there's a ratio of 60 to 65 or greater tells us this person is lymphatically blocked. This is not the only place that can be blocked. They can be blocked in the armpit from just wearing antiperspirants, because the sulfur builds up in the body. They're not utilizing their sulfur to get rid of the heavy metals. So we're going into the Allegro Scan, the recognition of the heavy metals, the effect of aluminum depleting the calcium in the cells, and then it's backing up like the 405. It's not able to get out the exits.
Yes.
And we all know what that means on the 405 on a Friday evening. So the reason we found this out is because topically we were able to change that the way the skin sweats. And so we induce sweating in different parts of the body and work up the lymphatics until we can get up to what's called the glial lymphatics, because we have to make sure the whole lymphatic system's open. And when we get to the glial lymphatics, they are actually up the neck and into the brain.
Exactly.
And it's important to have everything open before you go and get those open, because behind the ear in the temporal area, you have these lymph nodes. And those are usually swollen and they're not able to drain. And those drain through the underarm.
Exactly. And, and people sometimes lymphatic, they equate that when they hear the doctor say it's in the lymph nodes. And then people say, well, what are the lymph nodes? And so this is what we're explaining on the show today. You don't want things blocked up in your lymph nodes, especially axillary under the armpit. And there are more lymph nodes that people think, oh, there's only a few. I have a dear friend who ended up having, unfortunately, colon cancer. And they removed, oh my goodness, 17 lymph nodes for his abdomen. Because most of your lymph nodes, out of the 500 to 700 lymph nodes in your body, most of them are concentrated in the trunk area. So you don't want any lymph nodes at all in the body to be blocked or heavy burdened by any heavy metal. And the best way to find that out is test, don't guess, and find out what's going on so we can start getting that taken care of. And then the good thing about it, you can turn things around. I know I had food poisoning one night many, many years ago. And I had one of your products. And actually, I had one of your products because it was supposed to have been, it's used for weight loss. But I know it pulls out toxins. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, when I am sick to my stomach, I went to, and actually people say, well, what did you eat? I had a vegan meal at a vegan restaurant. But that doesn't mean you cannot still have food poisoning. And this is what happened to me. So, I took the detox deodorant, the Belly Freedom, I'm sorry. Took the Belly Freedom, one of your products, and I decided to rub it on my stomach. And in less than 5 minutes, the pain was gone. Because it started pulling, helping with the toxins. I had no discomfort in my stomach at all after doing this from the toxins. Now, I did a couple other things, but what happened immediately was the Belly Freedom. So moving those toxins, knowing that the majority of those lymph nodes are in your abdomen, it started to open up. I had a great, removing the other toxins from the body, and I had no downtime from work. Most people with this type of infection probably would have been in bed for 3 or 4 days. With me, the next morning I woke up and felt great. So, when we know better, we do better. And this is why I produce a show that I do every week and to help educate and let people know you don't have to suffer. We're going to do a very special show in a couple of weeks that I'm going to have you guys back on again, because I'm not going to go into detail right now because it's going to be a surprise, but it's going to help so many women and so many people who've had certain different type of surgeries and things done. So I just want to say today, because I know we're going to be running out of time, and I knew when I spoke to you two the other day, I said, next week is going to be part 2, because we're going to have so much more information to share so that people can go through this journey in life and be healthy and have the best quality of life. No one should have to suffer. I mean, I feel great. But I just want to say that, again, going back to the lymphatic system and the glymphatic system, but more the lymphatic right now, because a lot of times people will have enlargement in the back of the neck and underneath their jaw here. And underneath the jaw in the face is usually coming from dental, an abscess or some swelling. And that's how people remember, I had swelling here, and some people think it's something else. But it's the toxins. It's the toxins. There's no pump to help pump things along the body. It needs support and help in your lymphatic system and your glymphatic system. So keep in mind that lymphatic system really has to do with neurological disorders, the brain spinal system. So I love what you said, Mike, about the detoxing and also the drainage. Where is it draining from in that area? So I'm going to let you go ahead and finish that question.
Well, I'd like to, before something we've come across, we've been told that, well, I don't want to know. And my argument would be, I want to know what's going on inside my body,
Yes.
because if I can change my lifestyle to make my life healthier, if I missed the clue of zinc, or if I didn't know that my amalgams were leaking mercury that can be picked up on the Allegro Scan, you can be proactive and do something. So and the fact that we have to associate these products with people who can detox every day, because the pollution today in the industrial world does not stop. Cars do not stop. Airplanes don't stop. It's incumbent upon us to know where we are and to be proactive, so we don't end up being immobile. And so that is kind of our one of our missions that we were lucky enough to find with the Allegro Scan, our product, and a practitioner like yourself, Dr. Lee. Yes. We're very humbled.
I'm just honored that you're here, because the information that we just shared was, to me, it wasn't enough. And this is why we're going to do a part 2, because there's so much more we didn't even tap into as it relates to the metals. We did talk about the lithium and the lithium in the watch, but there's so many. And we know that some of the flaxseed coming from the soil is also high in some of the metals as well. I was looking at an article the other day, and the question was on sodas or soft drinks in plastic bottles. And the question was, what are the 2 metals associated with the metals from a soft drink? You want to answer that for me?
Well, aluminum is in it because it's corn syrup, so it'll be high in aluminum. And antimony is the other one in plastic that's bleached out. And I'm sure there are other ones, aren't there?
Yeah, actually the 2 most prominent ones was lead, and the other was cadmium.
Yeah, lead and cadmium.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we see, unfortunately, and there's a lot of lead and cadmium in chocolates, and even organic chocolates. And we measure people, and we see high lead, high cadmium, and then we see something like low chromium, and that's associated with a chocolate eater. And so we were amazed at how much cadmium is in chocolate.
So
we can find these little things and help people.
We can definitely help them. Now, what do you find high in your diabetic, say a diabetic type 1 who is on insulin? What are some of the heavy metals have you seen in your years of research?
Aluminum is throughout the body. They're not able to sweat enough. They are not able to, in fact, the bottom of the feet are so rough that they see the uric acid coming through the lower extremities. And so we have to back into starting with the bottom of the feet and start to work up and get rid of the expansion in the skin, because the skin is actually seeping. If you've seen some of these, diabetics that we know, we work with practitioners to get rid of the edema. We like to call the Herbalix, some of our detox, topical diuretics, because it works from the outside to pull the aluminum salts. And we'll get into that subject maybe this time or later. The aluminum salts that are found storing in our skin. That is the biggest problem we find in the population today, because it's reduced people's ability to sweat. And when you can't sweat out, you can't get rid of the metals. That means that they're going to be absorbed into the bones and in the organs.
Yes. Now, I just want to say real quick, because we're almost out of time, also aluminum cookware. So those of you who are cooking with aluminum cookware, you don't want this to leach into your food. Wrapping up your food in aluminum foil would leach. If you notice, I've said this before, the aluminum foil will be brown. If you see a brownish color, we don't have it in our house, but if you see a brownish color on your aluminum after you open something up, that's because that aluminum has leached into that food. And you can almost taste it. People always are cooking like spaghettis and things with marinara sauce, and maybe want to cover it up with aluminum or put it in an aluminum pot. If you look at the bottom of that pot is now turned to a brownish color. So your cookware is very important. The deodorant is important. Clothes, makeup. We cannot change what's going on in the environment. So we want to do what we can to put what we put in our body. Remember before someone told me the research on this, we used to look at the sky, and the sky was a beautiful blue color, beautiful blue. And if you look now, it's a haze kind of blue. It's not a clear, bright blue, because what you're looking through right now is a lot of aluminum. So you're getting this going into the lungs, into the body, so we're saturated. Not to say we want to live in a glass bubble, but there's things we can add to our diet. There's things we can add for detoxing, which will help us to heal and be wonderfully well through this journey. Because you don't want large amounts of aluminum in the brain, because it is linked to certain neurological disorders. Now we have to wrap up. We're going to do part 2 next week, only because there's so many things we didn't cover and so many other conditions we didn't cover. And we're going to tell you next week some other ways too, how to really heal the body at a cellular level and pull out these burdened heavy metals in your body. So I want to give you 30 seconds, because we're about out of time. So what do you want to leave the audience? What is your burning desire to want to leave the audience? They were sitting right in your face, or a patient was sitting in your face. What would you want them to know right now?
I'd like them to get an Allegro Scan test.
Thank you.
And learn how the proper way to detox. And that will lead into a better lifestyle of air, water, food, living conditions, so we can keep them from going to a nursing home where they can't take care of themselves.
Yes.
We want to empower people to have all the energy and the best life that they can have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And this is something that's going to this.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
I just wanted to end with, it is a continuous need, because we will always be accumulating. What we want to do is keep everything mobilized so we don't get toxicity from these heavy metals, because we're living with the enemy in this world. We can't avoid it, but we can keep it from hurting us.
Most definitely. Wonderful. I thank you both, and we will do part 2 next week, because there's so many other systems we did not cover. And really want to leave people with empowered on how they can decrease these burdened heavy metal and trace minerals that are not in balance. Everything has to be in balance in our body for us to function well. And we didn't even get into heart disease and other conditions as it relate to heavy metal, but we will our next show next week. So I want everybody to make sure you tune in. Share this show here with your family. You can see the show on our YouTube channel. It's here at UBN Go. Also visit our website later when it's designed. But I know this show is going to be very powerful. But please share. Please share this show. And visit our YouTube channel if you want to look at it later. It is streaming live from our YouTube channel as well. I just want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart, well, actually from all 4 chambers of my heart. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And as I always end the show, what do I always say? Repeat after me. I say that too, but repeat after me. And this is for everyone, because of the I am is so powerful. I am so grateful.
So grateful
that I am a magnet.
A magnet
for miracles.
Of miracles.
And this is how I met you. I said this the day that I went into this conference, that you were there. I said, I know that God, the universe, the spirit is going to lead me to everybody I need to know, and all the time to help people to heal. So I am just so grateful for you. Thank you. I want everyone to have a wonderful, blessed day. Most important, love yourself, hug yourself, and test, don't guess.
Join us every Wednesday live at 11 a.m. for NuWellness TV with Dr. Lee. Remember, healthy mind, healthy body. It's time for NuWellness TV with Dr. Lee. Join your host, the accomplished